Welcome back, and Owen's here to bring us a business update. Hello again,
Hello, Claire.
Owen. May Day across Europe, so public holiday for most, but there are one or two markets trading.
Yeah, it's pretty quiet all around, Claire, but of course much of the activity here will be on the political front in Paris with all those rallies across the capital today in the run-up to that second round of the French elections. London traders are at their desks this Tuesday morning. They're the FTSE just a fraction higher, 0.1%. Don't expect any great activity there, largely because most of the European markets are closed, including Paris. Can we give you the numbers? There it is. There you go. Just a fraction up. The Asian markets as well. A few markets there on holiday for May Day as well. The Nikkei was trading, ending the day at around 1.8% down. Don't read too much into that. It's just taking the brunt of the losses there. Just worth noting Australia as well. The Reserve Bank there, the central bank, has cut interest rates by a huge 0.5%, down now to around 3.75%. That will give more ammunition to those who think that the Australian growth story is coming to an end. The central bank there bringing interest rates down now that they think inflation fears are largely over.
Now, one or two earnings out there, and BP caught your eye.
Yeah, I said it would be pretty quiet, Claire, but it's always worth taking a look at BP, of course, in the wake of the Deepwater Horizon disaster. Its first quarter results, I can give you the numbers there. Net profit down some 19% to $5.9 billion for the first quarter. Now, that did just about beat expectations. Shares down, are broadly up over 1 year, but still down some 30% since the time of that Gulf of Mexico disaster 2 years ago. And worth noting, BP saying it's already paid out around $7.8 billion in damages for the litigation in the wake of that oil disaster, but expecting more to be paid out as those court cases continue to roll on. Possibly it could even pay out as much as $17 billion. We'll keep an eye on that. We're expecting those trials to start taking place in the weeks to come.
Right. And it's fuel that's at the centre of an unprecedented acquisition by Delta Airlines. It's bought its own oil refinery. The US company hopes it can isolate itself from turbulent energy markets and reduce a fuel bill that stands at $12 billion a year. Siobhan Silk reports.
They liked the oil so much, they bought the refinery. Under constant pressure from fluctuating fuel prices, Delta Airlines has decided to cut out the middleman. The US-based airline will start transforming oil into jet fuel at its new plant near Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The company says jet fuel has the highest profit margins of any refinery product. By processing the oil itself, it says it could cut $300 million a year from its massive fuel bills, though that's just a drop in the barrel. Last year, Delta spent almost $12 billion on fuel, a third of its operating costs. The company paid $150 million for the plant, which Delta CEO Richard Anderson said was a modest investment comparable to the cost of buying a large aircraft. Delta envisages spending another $100 million on upgrades to maximise the production of jet fuel. It will be helped by $30 million in state subsidies. The company believes it will be able to supply 80% of its own domestic fuel needs. Aerospace analysts say the strategy is innovative but risky, as it won't protect the airline from high crude oil prices.
Let's turn back to the Eurozone, Owen, because Germany's given a French-led European growth plan short shrift.
Yeah, I think it's only a matter of time, Claire, when a French plan comes out and the Germans hose it down a little bit, as it's proved. The ground's shifting a little bit now in the Eurozone. We've seen governments not just falling in the case of the Dutch, but having real trouble adjusting their budgets in the case of Spain. And it's François Hollande, that French socialist candidate, that's been leading these calls to try and focus a little bit more on growth and less on austerity, less on getting those budgets down to acceptable limits. The problem is, of course, the word German and austerity go hand in hand. The words German and austerity go hand in hand. The Germans, their focus is much more on budget discipline, bringing those deficits down. They don't really like the idea of a French-led plan to try and get some sort of European plan on growth. It was particularly unpalatable for the German finance minister Wolfgang Schäuble when he appeared with his Spanish counterpart yesterday.
We have a clear agreement in Europe and a long tradition that we keep to contracts we have made, and that this is not dependent on the result of elections in member states, because Europe cannot function otherwise.
This idea might be palatable to the Germans if it's done through the European Investment Bank.
That's certainly one way of looking at it. It's not really an institution we know an awful lot about, and yet it's always there. If you've taken a train in a country like Poland or you've logged on in a country like Romania, you're probably doing that thanks to European Investment Bank money, which pays for infrastructure projects throughout the EU. And this is the idea that rather than governments spending the money directly, they put it into this investment bank so it can raise the money through outside partners to spend on these projects. Don't expect any great detail on that, Claire, until certainly after these French elections. That's when EU leaders are going to meet after these elections to discuss this kind of plan.
All right, let's now pick up on a bit more company news. Shares in US bookseller Barnes & Noble have rocketed by 50% after signing a new partnership with Microsoft. The software giant is investing $605 million into Barnes's Nook e-reader. It's hoping to compete with both Apple and Amazon, whose ebook businesses have taken off following the launch of their respective tablets.
And the chief executive of British insurer Aviva has waived his pay rise to head off a fresh shareholder rebellion later this week. Andrew Moss is rejecting a 5% raise that would have taken his salary to £1 million. Aviva took the decision days before its annual meeting and after shareholders told the firm they wanted closer correlation between returns and pay.
Now, how would you like to set sail in an exact replica of the Titanic? An Australian mining magnate has commissioned a Chinese company to build a copy of the doomed liner. He says everything will be exactly the same except some of the technology.
A new chapter is set to be written in the epic tale that is the Titanic, a story laced with tragedy that's already been brought to life in many forms. But just 2 weeks after the world marked the 100th anniversary of its sinking on a maiden voyage, this man has promised to unveil the ultimate commemoration, a modern-day replica.
We're planning that when it's completed in 2016, it'll sail from Shanghai to London with an escort from the Chinese Navy. We'll be inviting the Royal Navy to escort her on its maiden voyage across to New York and the US Navy to give it an escort back to London. We think it'll be a great achievement. It'll also be a great tribute to the people who designed the original Titanic.
A deal's been agreed with a Chinese company to construct the new ship according to the original plans. When finished, the Titanic too would be the latest addition to Clive Palmer's tourism business interests. But 100 years after the first Titanic sank, would enough people be willing to sail aboard its namesake?
In spite of the name, I think there'll be quite a few people who will wish to travel on it because of the Titanic connection. When the James Cameron movie came out in 1997, there was an upswing in interest in cruising among the general public because of the Titanic movie.
Palmer hasn't given an estimated cost for the project, but he has assured potential passengers that the ship will have the latest navigation and safety systems.
That's all we have time for. Would you give it a go, Owen?
We were just talking then when we had the sort of Leonardo... Was it Leonardo DiCaprio? No, it was Kate Winslet, I think, who did the...
Yeah, she was standing behind him. He was standing behind her.
There you go.
All right, thank you very much for that, Owen. And thank you for watching. Stay tuned to France 24. All the latest headlines coming right up.